A man named Marcus had just bought a modest but beautiful home in a suburban neighborhood. He was one of the youngest homeowners in the area, and also one of the very few black residents in this gated HOA community. At first, everything seemed peaceful. Quiet mornings, polite neighbors, well-trimmed lawns, the typical image you'd expect from a cookie-cutter suburb. But not long after moving in, Marcus started noticing something strange. His internet speed was way slower than what he was paying. Before he called the internet company, they ran tests, and everything checked out on their end. Confused, Marcus started digging deeper. He logged into his router to check connected devices, and that's when things started to unravel. There were more than 30 unknown devices connected to his network: smart TVs, phones, tablets, even a few printers. He knew immediately someone was stealing his WI-fee. Now Marcus is no amateur. He works in IT security, so he started scanning MAC addresses, tracing connection histories, and running network tools. It didn't take long before he isolated the source of the leeching. The signal pointed to a house just 2 doors down. The homeowner, a woman everyone in the neighborhood knew simply as Karen, the self-pointed eyes and ears of the HOA. Karen was notorious for poking her nose into everyone's business. Trash bins not pulled in on time. She'd email the HOA board. Garden. Lights left on too late. You'd get a passive-aggressive note on your door. But stealing Wi-Fi was a whole new level. So what did Marcus do? Simply change the Wi-Fi password. The next morning, Karen was on a warpath. She knocked on his door, arms crossed, eyes blazing, demanding to know if he had tampered with the neighborhood network. Marcus laughed and calmly replied, "Ma'am, it's my own private home internet. I just changed the password. No one should have been on it but me." Karen didn't like that answer. Not one bit. She stormed off, and not even 15 minutes later, police sirens echoed through the neighborhood. That's right. Karen had called 911 her claim that Marcus had somehow hacked into her devices, and she felt unsafe and violated. She even claimed he had access to her personal data and was using it to retaliate against her. The responding officers were caught off guard. Marcus stood on his porch, calm and cooperative. He explained the situation, showed his internet bill, his router logs, and even the screenshot of all the foreign devices that had been piggybacking on his connection. The officers were visibly uncomfortable. They knew this wasn't a criminal situation. In fact, Marcus was the victim. But Karen was still screaming from her lawn, claiming that he had hacked the HOA. That's when Marcus dropped the real bombshell. While investigating the leeching, Marcus had noticed something even more disturbing. Several of the foreign devices had shared names linked to the HOA's internal network. Apparently someone had connected HOA-owned surveillance cameras and administrative equipment to his network, either by accident or design. And the more he looked into it, the more Marcus discovered that the HOA president, a friend of Karen's, had been using his Wi-Fi to remotely monitor neighborhood cameras. Cameras that were supposedly used only for security purposes, but were positioned to overlook people's backyards, driveways, and even some bedroom windows. Yeah, that's when things went nuclear. Marcus compiled the evidence and submitted a complaint to the local authorities and the FCC, citing unauthorized access, privacy violations, and misuse of surveillance tech. He also filed a formal complaint to the HOA board and threatened legal action. Karen went silent, but she wasn't ready to give up just yet. She tried rallying the neighborhood, spreading lies that Marcus was dangerous, aggressive, and had connections to shady people online. But that plan backfired. Several neighbors who had also been experiencing slow internet checked their own routers. Turns out Karen and her HOA friends had been leeching off multiple people in the neighborhood. Using stolen credentials and backdoor access points, the scandal exploded. The HOA president was forced to resign. Karen was hit with multiple CSR and DSS letters, and the HOA was slapped with a major lawsuit. Marcus, he became a bit of a local hero, especially after a few of his neighbors realized their home security systems had been vulnerable thanks to shared networks. In the end, Marcus upgraded his security, installed firewalled mesh systems, and even hosted a free tech workshop for neighbors on how to protect themselves online. He didn't just protect his own data, he helped protect the whole community. Karen, She moved out 6 months later, after losing a civil suit and being fined thousands for privacy violations and slander. All because a black man changed his own Wi-Fi password and exposed a digital conspiracy hiding right under everyone's nose. The lesson? Never underestimate who you're messing with, and don't assume that the quiet guy with the slow internet isn't watching *C. Marcus wasn't the kind of guy to just let things go quietly. After the dust settled, he decided to start digging into the financial records of the HOA, not out of revenge, but out of curiosity. After all, the whole situation had revealed how careless and possibly corrupt the board had been. And since he was now a dues-paying member, he had the legal right to request financial transparency from the HOA. What he found was, jaw-dropping, over the past 5 years, thousands of dollars had gone missing. HOA dues were being diverted into security upgrades that never actually happened, maintenance that was never performed, and get this, community improvements that no one in the neighborhood had ever seen. Guess whose signature was all over those transactions? Karen's, turns out, before she became the self-appointed moral compass of the neighborhood. Karen had served as treasurer of the HOA during her time in that position. She'd been funneling small amounts of money into bogus service payments, landscaping work billed to a company that didn't exist, security cameras that were never delivered, and even a shady consulting contract worth $12,000. That went straight into her cousin's bank account. Marcus compiled everything. Every document, every fake invoice, every shady check. Then he took it a step further and submitted his findings to a local investigative reporter who ran a small segment on community corruption. That short segment went viral. The fallout was immediate. The entire HOA board was audited. Karen's cousin, who had received several of the fraudulent payments, was questioned by the IRS. Even the HOA management company that had partnered with the board was slapped with a fraud investigation by this point. Marcus had not only cleared his name, it exposed a full-blown embezzlement scheme. Neighbors who once gave him suspicious looks were now walking over with pies, thank you cards, and apologies. Board, which after some thought, he accepted. And the first thing he did as a board member, he introduced a motion to dissolve the HOA entirely. It was bold. It was controversial. It passed with a 2/3 vote. Years of petty fines, corrupt leadership, and invasions of privacy, gone. Replaced by a voluntary neighborhood committee focused on actual safety, community events, and cooperation instead of control. Marcus even partnered with local students from the community college to host digital literacy classes at the nearby library, teaching people how to set up secure home networks, recognize phishing scams, and protect their devices from unauthorized access. He turned a situation built on prejudice, power, and paranoia into one of empowerment and education. As for Karen, last anyone heard, she was trying to start a Facebook group for HOA survivors in a new town, but no one joined. The irony? Marcus never changed his Wi-Fi name. He left it exactly as it was from the beginning. But after everything unfolded, he added a new tagline under it, visible to anyone scanning for connections. Nearby, this network is protected, and so is the truth. Asterisk after the HOA was officially dissolved. Life in the neighborhood took on a totally new rhythm. People who had once been cautious and distant with each other started talking more at the mailbox. Even at impromptu block parties that Marcus helped organize, but just when things seemed to finally be back to normal, Karen reappeared. Not in person? No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, she began harassing the neighborhood online. First, it started with vague Facebook posts. She joined a local community group under a different name and began spreading twisted versions of what happened, accusing Marcus of hacking into HOA accounts, blackmailing board members, and claiming he weaponized race to dismantle order. Her posts got little traction at first, but then she upped the ante. She began posting screenshots of old neighborhood security footage she should no longer have access to, trying to imply that Marcus had been aggressive and intimidating to residents long before any Wi-Fi drama started. The footage was clearly edited and out of context, like one clip where Marcus was waving to a delivery driver. but she cropped it to look like he was shouting. Now here's the twist. What Karen didn't know was that Marcus had been quietly working with a cyber forensics team. When she posted the footage online, he and his team traced the video metadata, and it didn't just show who uploaded it. It showed what device it came from, and that device. It was still registered to the original HOA system. One of the illegal surveillance setups Karen and the HOA president had installed years earlier. Life was good, peaceful even. Marcus had become somewhat of a local legend. His story had made its way into internet lore, featured in Reddit threads, YouTube documentaries, and even a short piece in Wired magazine. The old HOA was long gone. The surveillance equipment had been dismantled. The bylaws that once controlled everyone's lives were now collecting digital dust in a forgotten archive. Marcus kept to himself, mostly, but continued mentoring young cybersecurity students at the local community college, helping others understand the power and danger of digital footprints. But just when he thought the saga was behind him, he got a letter in the mail. Not a bill, not junk. A thick, glossy brochure. It read, A fresh future, introducing Crescent Point Estates, a modern community built on respect, security, and accountability. Formerly known as Oak Ridge Trails. That was the name of Marcus's neighborhood before Karen tried to turn it into her private surveillance state. The rebranding was slick. Same streets, same homes, just a new logo, a new website, and one very familiar catchphrase printed across the top: one network. One standard, one community. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He flipped to the back page. There, in small text, was the signature of the newly appointed community management consultant for Crescent Point. Rebecca L. Kearns. Karen, she had changed her name slightly. Not enough to fool Marcus or any database search. She was trying to come back. Not as a neighbor, but in a consulting role behind the scenes. Pulling strings from a distance, helping reintroduce soft HOA practices under a private management firm. No board. No public meetings. It's just quiet monthly fees wrapped into property taxes and contracts residents wouldn't notice until it was too late. But Marcus was ready. Within 72 hours, he had a plan in motion. He contacted his no-substantial online following and launched a digital transparency campaign titled HOA 2.0, Don't Let It Happen Again. He exposed the rebranding attempt, traced the consulting firm Karen was using, and connected it to 3 other failed HOA schemes she had tried launching in other counties. He posted public video breakdowns, timeline maps, and screenshots showing how she'd been trying to reinvent herself as a community systems expert. The community once again rallied. Residents petitioned their local zoning committee, demanding a full audit of Crescent PTUNT estates, licensing, consulting relationships. An operating structure, the entire rebrand collapsed in under a month. And Karen? She vanished again, except this time she didn't reappear under a fake name or burner account. No, this time she showed up in person. One quiet morning, Marcus opened his door to find her older, thinner, eyes heavy with something between desperation and delusion. She didn't yell, didn't accuse. She just said, "You ruined everything I tried to build. All of it. I was trying to make people follow rules. What's so wrong with that?" Marcus didn't respond at first. He just looked at her, this woman who once called 911 over a changed Wi-Fi password, who tampered with networks, harassed families, built digital dossiers on neighbors, and tried to rewrite the truth. Finally, he said, "Rules aren't the problem. It's the people who think they're above them." He closed the door. She stood there for a moment and left. That was the last time anyone in the neighborhood saw her. Rumor has it she moved states, deleted her online presence, changed her name. Again, some say she joined a remote community in Montana where there's no Wi-Fi at all. But Marcus, he stayed, and every now and then, a new neighbor would move in, hear whispers of the HOA hacker story, and ask if it was really true. Marcus would just smile and say, "I just wanted fast internet. But I guess some people prefer control over connection," and he'd hand them a guest login card to his secured network. The name, Karen Free Zone _5G, and beneath it, just for those paying attention, the network motto,